Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the U.S. Defiance, watching the massive alien fleet approach through the viewport. The Korthak hegemony had finally made their move, just as Earth's intelligence had predicted. Behind her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, their faces showing the calm determination that had become humanity's trademark in the 5 years since first contact. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the lead Korthak vessel," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb, the communications officer. His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the underlying tension. This was the moment everyone had been preparing for. Sarah walked to her command chair and activated the ship's communication system. "Put it through, Lieutenant. Let's hear what they have to say." The main screen flickered to life, showing the reptilian face of what could only be a Korthak commander. The alien's skin was dark green with black stripes, and its yellow eyes glowed with arrogance. When it spoke, its voice was a harsh combination of hisses and clicks that the universal translator converted into cold formal words. "Human vessel, I am War Leader Thax of the Korthak hegemony. You will stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your species has been judged inferior and marked for subjugation. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." Sarah stood slowly, her uniform crisp and her bearing military perfect. She had been preparing for this conversation for months, ever since the Korthak had begun massing fleets at the edge of human space. "War Leader Thax, I am Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Navy. I'm going to say this once and only once, so I suggest you listen carefully." The alien's head tilted slightly, clearly not expecting such a direct response from what it considered a primitive species. "Speak quickly, inferior creature. My patience grows thin." Sarah's voice remained calm, but every human on the bridge could hear steel beneath her words. "The United Earth government has issued a formal warning to your hegemony through diplomatic channels. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw your forces from human space and return to your own territory. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is your final warning. War Leader." Thax made a sound that might have been laughter, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You dare threaten the Korthak hegemony? We have conquered 100 species across 50 star systems. Your pathetic little fleet stands no chance against our might." "1 hour," Sarah repeated, her voice growing colder. "After that, any Korthak vessel remaining in human space will be considered an act of war. You've been warned." She cut the transmission and turned to her tactical officer. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, signal Admiral Harrison. Tell him the clock is ticking." Exactly 61 minutes later, the Battle of Proxima Centauri began, and it lasted exactly 18 minutes. Asterisk, 5 years earlier. Asterisk, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the SETI facility in New Mexico, staring at the signal analysis on her computer screen. After 30 years of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, she had finally found something that made her hands shake as she reached for the phone. "Director Morrison, you need to get down here immediately," she said when her supervisor answered. "We're receiving a structured signal from the Proxima Centauri system. It's definitely artificial, and it's definitely not human." Within hours, the world's leading scientists, military leaders, and government officials were gathered in secure facilities around the globe. The signal was complex, mathematical, and clearly designed to be understood by any technological species. When decoded, it contained star charts, basic mathematical concepts, and what appeared to be a peaceful greeting. President Rebecca Hayes addressed the United Nations 3 days later. "My fellow humans, we are no longer alone in the universe. The signal we have received appears to be a first contact attempt from an intelligent species near our closest stellar neighbor. I am authorizing the immediate construction of humanity's first interstellar communication array and our first faster-than-light capable vessel." The response from Earth took 2 years to construct and send. It contained similar mathematical concepts, detailed information about human culture and history, and an invitation for peaceful contact and trade. The message also included something that would prove prophetic, a detailed explanation of human concepts of justice, self-defense, and the protection of innocent life. The aliens' response arrived 18 months later. It was not what anyone expected. Species of Soul 3, the translated message read, "Your primitive civilization has been evaluated by the Galactic Assessment Council. You have been classified as Category 7, suitable for integration. A diplomatic vessel will arrive at your system in one standard cycle to begin the process of bringing your species into the galactic community as a client race under Korthak supervision." The message went on to explain that humanity would be relocated to appropriate worlds where they could serve the galactic community in roles suited to their abilities. Earth would be designated as a Korthak administrative center due to its strategic location. General Patricia Armstrong, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, read the message aloud to the emergency session of world leaders. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. "They're not coming as friends," President Hayes said quietly. "They're coming as conquerors." Dr. James Mitchell, Earth's leading xenobiologist, stood up from his seat. The message references a Galactic Assessment Council and implies this has happened before. We're not the first species they've contacted, and apparently not the first they've decided to integrate. Foreign Minister Liu Wei from China leaned forward. "What exactly does client race mean?" Dr. Mitchell's face was grim. "Based on the context and terminology, I believe it means slaves." The room erupted in angry voices and demands for action. President Hayes stood and raised her hand for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have approximately 2 years before their diplomatic vessel arrives. I suggest we use that time wisely." What followed was the greatest mobilization in human history. Every nation on Earth contributed resources to what became known as the Terra Defense Initiative. The brightest scientists worked around the clock to develop faster-than-light travel, advanced weapons, and defensive systems. Military leaders from every country collaborated to design strategies for fighting an enemy they knew almost nothing about. Dr. Sarah Kim, head of the FTL research team, made the breakthrough that changed everything. "We've been thinking about this wrong," she announced at a project meeting. "The aliens' message mentioned that we're classified as Category 7. That implies there are at least 6 other categories. What if we can find species that refused integration?" The search began immediately. Using the advanced telescopes and listening posts that had been constructed for the Terra Defense Initiative, human scientists scanned nearby star systems for signs of technological civilizations. What they found was disturbing. Systems that should have shown signs of advanced civilizations were silent. Worlds that spectral analysis indicated should be inhabited showed no electromagnetic signatures of technology. Either these civilizations had never developed or something had happened to them. But in the Wolf 359 system, they found something different. "Director, you need to see this," Dr. Kim called out during a late-night observation session. "We're picking up what looks like ship construction in the Wolf system. Massive industrial activity." The images that came back from the advanced probe sent to investigate showed a species that had clearly survived their integration assessment. The Zalari, as they called themselves, had been contacted by the Korthak hegemony 70 years earlier. Their response had been simple: no. The war that followed had lasted 15 years. The Zalari had lost half their population, but they had won their independence. Now they maintained hidden shipyards and military bases, preparing for the Korthak's inevitable return. First contact with the Zalari came through coded transmissions that took months to establish. Ambassador Maria Santos led the human diplomatic team in the first interspecies alliance in human history. "The Korthak will come with promises of peace and prosperity," warned Commander Thren, the Zalari military leader whose scarred carapace told the story of decades of war. "They will offer you technology and membership in their galactic community. But the price is your freedom. Once you accept their protection, you become property." "How many species have they integrated?" asked General Armstrong. "Over 300 that we know of," Thren replied. "Some fought. Most surrendered when they saw the size of the Korthak fleets. None who surrendered were ever heard from again." The alliance between humanity and the Zalari was formalized 6 months before the Korthak diplomatic vessel arrived at Earth. The two species shared technology, tactics, and most importantly, intelligence about their common enemy. When the Korthak ship Subjugator entered Earth's solar system, it was met by the UES Enterprise, humanity's first FTL-capable warship. The subsequent diplomatic meeting was held in orbit around Earth, with representatives from both species. War Commander Zeth was clearly surprised to find humans already possessing faster-than-light technology. The reptilian alien's demeanor became noticeably more cautious as he was escorted through the Enterprise's corridors, seeing weapon systems and defensive capabilities that exceeded his expectations. "Your species has developed more rapidly than our initial assessment indicated," Zeth admitted during the formal meeting. "However, this does not change your classification. You will still be integrated into the galactic community under Korthak guidance." President Hayes, now in her second term, met the alien commander's gaze directly. "War Commander Zeth, I want to make something very clear. Humanity rejects your offer of integration. We decline to become a client race. We choose to remain independent." Zeth's yellow eyes narrowed. "Independence is not an option for Category 7 species. You lack the military capability to resist integration. Your choice is between voluntary compliance and forced subjugation." "I see," President Hayes replied calmly. "And if we continue to refuse, then your species will be reduced to a manageable population level and relocated accordingly. Your world will be claimed for the hegemony." The president stood slowly, her diplomatic training keeping her expression neutral, despite the threat that had just been made against every human being alive. "War Commander, I want to make sure I understand you correctly. You're telling me that if humanity refuses to surrender our freedom, you will commit genocide against our species?" "We prefer the term population adjustment," Zeth replied coldly. "It is standard procedure for resistant species." President Hayes nodded slowly. "I see. Well, War Commander, let me make Earth's position absolutely clear. Humanity rejects your demands. We will not surrender our independence. We will not become your slaves. And if you attempt to carry out your threats against our people, you will discover that humanity is not the helpless species you believe us to be." Zeth stood as well, his massive frame towering over the human president. "You have made a grave error, President Hayes. The Korthak hegemony does not make idle threats. You have 1 standard year to reconsider your position. When we return, it will be with a conquest fleet. I suggest you use that time to prepare your species for their new reality." As the Korthak vessel departed Earth's solar system, President Hayes turned to General Armstrong. "Patricia, activate the Prometheus Protocol. It's time to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of." The Prometheus Protocol was humanity's deepest secret, developed in parallel with the Terra Defense Initiative. While the world focused on building defenses, a select group of scientists had been working on something far more ambitious, weapons that could level the playing field against a technologically superior enemy. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the same scientist who had detected the first alien signal, now led a research team that had been studying theoretical physics applications for warfare. "The aliens clearly have superior technology," she explained to the project leaders, "but they also clearly believe they understand the limits of what's possible. We need to develop weapons they won't see coming." No, the first breakthrough came from an unexpected source: quantum mechanics research that had been ongoing for decades. Dr. Michael Chang discovered that it was possible to create weapons that existed in quantum superposition, allowing them to bypass conventional defenses by literally existing in multiple states simultaneously. "The projectile exists in all possible locations until it hits its target," Chang explained to the military advisors. "No shield can block it because the shield doesn't know where it is until after it's already hit." The second breakthrough was even more revolutionary. Dr. Kim's team developed what they called reality anchors devices that could lock local space-time into a specific configuration, preventing faster-than-light travel or communication within their area of effect. "If we can prevent the enemy from escaping or calling for reinforcements," Dr. Kim explained, "we can force them to fight on our terms instead of theirs." But the most devastating weapon in humanity's arsenal was developed by a team led by Dr. Angela Torres, a theoretical physicist who had been studying the fundamental forces of the universe. She discovered how to create controlled tears in space-time itself. "We're not just building weapons," Torres told the assembled world leaders during a classified briefing. "We're rewriting the rules of physics in localized areas. An enemy ship caught in a space-time distortion field won't just be destroyed, it will cease to have ever existed. The year passed quickly as humanity prepared for war. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt produced vessels that incorporated technology beyond anything the Korthak had ever encountered. The Zalari provided intelligence about Korthak tactics and ship designs, while human engineers created countermeasures for every threat they might face. But perhaps the most important preparation was psychological. Every human military officer studied recordings of the meeting with War Commander Zeth, learning to recognize the arrogance and contempt that led the Korthak to consistently underestimate their enemies. "They see us as primitives," General Armstrong explained to her senior staff. "That's their greatest weakness. They can't conceive of a species they consider inferior developing weapons they don't understand." When the Korthak conquest fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system, it consisted of over 200 warships, the largest force the hegemony had ever deployed against a single world. War leader Thax commanded the fleet from his massive dreadnought, confident that the primitive humans would surrender as soon as they saw the overwhelming force arrayed against them. The human response to their arrival was a single ship, the UES Defiance, carrying a crew of 300 and weapons that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare. And that brought the story back to Commander Sarah Chen, standing on her bridge as the Korthak ultimatum expired. "Ma'am, the Korthak fleet is moving into attack formation," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from the tactical station. 214 vessels, including 6 dreadnought-class ships. Sarah nodded calmly. "Very well. Signal Admiral Harrison that the Prometheus protocol is now active. All weapon systems online, reality anchors to maximum power." The space around the two fleets suddenly changed as the reality anchors activated. The fundamental laws of physics became malleable within their area of effect, creating a battlefield where human technology held every advantage. "War Leader Thax is demanding our surrender," reported Lieutenant Webb. "Tell War Leader Thax that he was warned," Sarah replied. "Weapons free, commence firing." What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. The UES Defiance engaged the entire Korthak conquest fleet single-handedly, using weapons that the aliens couldn't understand, couldn't defend against, and couldn't escape from. The quantum torpedoes struck their targets before they were fired, existing in superposition until the moment of impact. Korthak's shields, designed to deflect conventional energy weapons, were useless against projectiles that existed in multiple states simultaneously. The space-time distortion cannons created localized areas where cause and effect became optional. Korthak ships caught in these fields didn't just explode, they experienced their destruction in reverse, their hulls reconstructing themselves only to be destroyed again in an endless loop of temporal paradox. But it was the reality anchors that truly broke the Korthak fleet. Unable to escape to faster-than-light speeds, unable to call for reinforcements, the aliens found themselves trapped in a battle they couldn't win against an enemy they couldn't understand. War Leader. Thax's dreadnought was the last ship to fall, its massive bulk torn apart by weapons that violated everything the Korthak thought they knew about the universe. As his ship died around him, Thax managed to send one final transmission. "Impossible," he hissed into his communicator. "You are Category 7. You are primitives." "How do you possess such weapons?" Commander Sarah Chen's voice came back through the static, calm and professional. "War Leader Thax, you made the same mistake every bully makes. You assumed that because we prefer peace, we were incapable of war. You were wrong." The Battle of Proxima Centauri lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, the entire Korthak conquest fleet was either destroyed or drifting powerless in space, their crews dead or unconscious from weapons that attacked their nervous systems directly. But the real shock came when the human fleet arrived to secure the battlefield. War Leader Thax, pulled from the wreckage of his command ship, found himself looking at not one ship, but at over 500 human vessels that had been waiting in stealth just outside the battle zone. You had a fleet all along," he gasped, his reptilian features showing confusion and fear. Admiral Harrison, who commanded the human task force, nodded grimly. "The Defiance was just the test, War Leader. We wanted to see if our new weapons worked as advertised. Apparently they do. The alien commander's yellow eyes widened as the implications became clear. If one of your ships could destroy our entire fleet, then with 500 ships, you could destroy your entire civilization, Admiral Harrison finished. Yes, War Leader, we could. The question is whether we'll need to. News of the Battle of Proxima Centauri spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every spacefaring civilization had heard the impossible story. A single ship from a Category 7 species had destroyed a Korthak conquest fleet. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Species that had been enslaved by the Korthak for generations began to revolt. Civilizations that had been considering surrender to hegemony demands suddenly found their courage, and the Korthak themselves faced their first real crisis in over 2 centuries of expansion. High Commander Varex, Supreme Leader of the Korthak hegemony, convened an emergency session of the War Council on the hegemony capital world of Korthak Prime. The massive reptilian stood before a holographic display showing the wreckage of Thak's fleet, his scaled hands clenched in fury. Explain to me how a primitive species destroyed our most powerful battle group, he hissed at his subordinates. War Commander Yale, one of the few Korthak officers who had encountered human technology before, stepped forward nervously. High Commander, our intelligence was flawed. The humans are not Category 7. Their technology exceeds our own in several key areas. That is impossible, Varex roared. We have conquered 300 species. None of them possessed weapons capable of destroying our fleets. Perhaps, suggested Intelligence Director Kren, that is because none of them had time to develop such weapons. The humans had advance warning of our intentions. They spent years preparing specifically to fight us. Varex turned his attention to the tactical display, studying the sensor readings from the battle. What he saw there challenged everything the Korthak believed about warfare and technology. These weapons, he said slowly, they operate on principles we do not understand. How can a projectile hit its target before it is fired? How can a ship be destroyed by temporal paradox? What manner of science is this? Unknown, High Commander, replied Science Leader Noth. Our best analysts believe the humans have developed applications of theoretical physics that we considered impossible. The High Commander stood silent for long moments, contemplating the holographic evidence of his fleet's destruction. Finally, he spoke in a voice that carried the weight of 2 centuries of Korthak dominance. Send a message to all fleet commanders. The human system is to be quarantined. No Korthak vessel is to approach their territory without direct authorization from this council. We must determine the full extent of their capabilities before making our next move. But it was already too late for caution. Word of the human victory had reached the Zellery, who immediately began preparing for a joint offensive against their common enemy. More importantly, it had reached the enslaved species within Korthak territory. The first revolt began on Drakmor, a mining world populated by the remnants of 6 different conquered civilizations. When the enslaved populations heard that the mighty Korthak fleet had been destroyed by a single ship, they realized that their oppressors were not invincible after all. Administrator Gorth was dragged from his command center by a mob of slaves who had spent generations in the underground mines. As they held him before a crowd of thousands, he tried to maintain his authority through intimidation. You dare raise your hands against the Korthak hegemony? He snarled at the rebels. When reinforcements arrive, you will all be executed for this transgression. An elderly Vorthon, whose people had been enslaved for over 50 years, stepped forward. Her voice was weak with age, but her words carried the strength of hope reborn. We have heard the news from the human system, Administrator. Your invincible fleet was destroyed by beings you considered primitive. If they can defeat you, then perhaps we can as well. The revolt spread from world to world, species to species. The hegemony's vast slave empire began to collapse as populations that had lived in fear for generations suddenly found the courage to fight back. On Earth, President Hayes received daily reports about the galactic upheaval. The human victory had created a crisis that reached far beyond their own solar system. Madam President, General Armstrong reported during a classified briefing, we're receiving communication requests from over 40 different species. They're all asking for military assistance against the Korthak. President Hayes studied the star charts showing the locations of various rebel activities. What's our intelligence assessment of the situation? The Korthak hegemony is fracturing, replied CIA Director Robert Chen. Their entire system of control was based on fear and overwhelming military superiority. Now that their military has been proven vulnerable, their enslaved populations are rebelling faster than they can respond. Dr. Vasquez, now serving as the president's science advisor, leaned forward. Madam President, we have an opportunity here to fundamentally change the balance of power in this region of the galaxy. But we also have a responsibility. Explain. Our victory demonstrated that the Korthak can be defeated. That knowledge has given hope to billions of enslaved beings. If we don't help them, and the Korthak manage to suppress the revolts, the reprisals will be genocidal. President Hayes nodded grimly. She had been expecting this moment since the first reports of revolts began arriving. What are our military capabilities for extended operations? Admiral Harrison, participating via secure link from the Fleet Command Station, responded immediately. We have 57 ships equipped with Prometheus-class weapon systems. Intelligence estimates suggest the Korthak have approximately 3,000 vessels remaining in their active fleet. Those odds don't sound encouraging, Admiral. Under normal circumstances, you'd be correct, Madam President. But these aren't normal circumstances. Our weapons operate on principles the Korthak don't understand and can't counter. Additionally, we now have detailed intelligence about their ship designs, tactics, and strategic thinking from our Zalari allies. General Armstrong added, more importantly, we don't need to conquer the entire hegemony. We just need to support the rebellions long enough for them to become self-sustaining. President Hayes stood and walked to the window of the Oval Office, looking up at the stars that now held so much promise and danger. 5 years ago, we were alone in the universe. Now we have the opportunity to liberate hundreds of enslaved civilizations. But we also risk starting a war that could consume this entire region of the galaxy. She turned back to face her advisors. What does our conscience tell us to do? Dr. Vasquez spoke first. We have to help them, Madam President. We can't be responsible for giving hope to enslaved populations and then abandoning them to face the consequences alone. General Armstrong nodded. From a strategic perspective, helping the rebellion succeed serves our own interests. A galaxy full of free, grateful species is much safer for humanity than one dominated by a hostile empire that wants to enslave us. President Hayes made her decision. Draft a message to the Galactic Assembly. Inform all spacefaring civilizations that Earth is declaring the Korthak hegemony to be an illegitimate government engaged in crimes against sentient life. We will provide military assistance to any enslaved population seeking freedom. The message that went out from Earth 3 days later would become known as the Liberation Proclamation. It was broadcast on all known communication frequencies and transmitted to every star system with signs of intelligent life. To all free peoples of the galaxy, President Hayes' voice carried across the cosmos, and to all those who struggle under the yoke of oppression, Earth stands with you. The Korthak hegemony has built their empire on slavery, genocide, and the systematic destruction of free civilizations. This ends now. The proclamation went on to offer military assistance, technological aid, and alliance opportunities to any species fighting for their freedom. It also contained a direct message to the Korthak leadership. To High Commander Varex and the ruling council of the Korthak hegemony, you have one final opportunity to avoid total war. Release all enslaved populations immediately. Withdraw to your original territories. Abandon your expansion campaigns. Do this, and Earth will allow your civilization to continue existing. Refuse and face the consequences. The Korthak response came within hours. High Commander Varex himself appeared on the communication channels, his massive form radiating fury and contempt. Humans of the Sol system, his voice hissed with rage. You dare to make demands of the Korthak hegemony? You are a young species that has won a single battle through trickery and unknown weapons. We have conquered the galaxy for 2 centuries. Your threats are meaningless. President Hayes appeared on the return transmission. Her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the alien's rage. High Commander Varex, This was not a threat. This was your final warning. You have chosen war over peace, slavery over freedom, and destruction over coexistence. So be it. She paused, letting her words sink in. Let me be very clear about what happens next. Earth is now at war with the Korthak hegemony. We will support every rebellion, assist every escape attempt, and destroy every slaving vessel we encounter. Your empire dies today. The transmission ended, and the Second Galactic War began. Admiral Harrison commanded the first human expeditionary force to leave the solar system since the Terra Defense Initiative began. His fleet of 20 ships, each equipped with reality-bending weapons, targeted the Korthak supply lines that connected their slave worlds to their military bases. The first engagement came at the Kepler 442 system, where a Korthak supply convoy was transporting enslaved workers to a new mining operation. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel directly in the convoy's path, reality anchors immediately activating to prevent escape. Convoy leader. Tech commanded 12 cargo vessels and 6 escort fighters. When the human ships appeared, his first reaction was confidence. Surely 6 Korthak warships could handle 20 vessels from a primitive species. His confidence lasted exactly 37 seconds. The quantum torpedoes struck his flagship before his weapons officer could even target the human vessels. The space-time distortion cannons tore through his escort formation like they were made of paper, and the reality anchors prevented any of his ships from escaping to hyperspace. Impossible, Tech snarled at his tactical officer. How are they targeting us through our shields? Unknown, convoy leader. Our sensors show the human weapons exist in multiple locations simultaneously. I cannot establish targeting locks. Admiral Harrison's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. Convoy leader Thek, you are transporting enslaved beings in violation of the laws of sentient rights as established by Earth. Surrender your vessels immediately and prepare to transfer your prisoners to our custody. Thek's reptilian features twisted with rage. We do not surrender to inferior species. All vessels, ramming speed. Show these mammals what Korthak honor means. The convoy leader's ship accelerated toward the nearest human vessel, intent on destroying it through collision. Instead, it passed harmlessly through what appeared to be solid matter, emerging on the other side, confused and undamaged. Convoy leader, his science officer reported in a shaking voice. The human ship exists in quantum superposition. It is simultaneously solid and incorporeal. Our weapons cannot lock onto it, and physical contact is impossible. Harrison's voice came through the speakers again. You have 30 seconds to surrender, convoy leader. After that, we will disable your vessels and take the prisoners by force. Vex's response was to order his remaining ships to open fire on the human fleet. The green energy beams that had terrorized countless species for 2 centuries passed harmlessly through their targets, striking empty space where the human ships had been nanoseconds before. The human response was swift and decisive. Reality distortion fields enveloped each Korthak vessel, trapping them in localized space-time anomalies. The aliens found their ships frozen in temporal loops, unable to move, fight, or escape. Stand down, convoy leader, Admiral Harrison ordered. Your vessels are now locked in temporal stasis. Your crews will remain conscious, but unable to act until you surrender the enslaved beings in your custody. Faced with the choice between eternal imprisonment and surrender, Tech chose survival. We surrender. The prisoners are yours. The liberation of the Kepler 442 convoy rescued over 10,000 enslaved beings from 6 different species. But more importantly, it demonstrated to the galaxy that the human victory at Proxima Centauri had not been a fluke. News of the convoy's capture spread throughout Korthak space, carried by the few vessels that had been allowed to escape as witnesses. The message was clear. Earth's new weapons made conventional resistance impossible. The effect on the ongoing rebellions was immediate and dramatic. On world after world, enslaved populations rose up against their overseers, inspired by the knowledge that help was coming. Although Captain Maria Santos, granddaughter of the ambassador who had negotiated the first alliance with the Zalari, commanded the UES liberation as it responded to a distress call from the Altair system. The message had come from a group of enslaved Vortons who had seized control of a mining facility and were requesting immediate assistance. "Captain, we're detecting 12 Korthak vessels moving toward the planet," reported Lieutenant James Kim, her tactical officer. "They appear to be a punishment fleet, probably sent to make an example of the rebels." Maria studied the tactical display. 12 ships against one, but she had seen the recordings of Admiral Harrison's convoy engagement. Human technology had made traditional odds irrelevant. "Signal the Korthak fleet," she ordered. "Let's see if they're willing to listen to reason." The lead Korthak vessel responded to her hail immediately. The reptilian face that appeared on her screen belonged to a scarred veteran whose yellow eyes burned with fanatical hatred. "Human vessel, I am punishment leader, Vorth of the Hegemony Disciplinary Fleet. You will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The rebellious slaves on this world will face proper justice for their crimes." Maria's voice remained calm, despite the aliens' obvious bloodlust. "Punishment leader Vorth, the beings on that planet are free sentients who have rejected enslavement. Earth recognizes their independence and will defend their right to self-determination." Vorth's scarred face twisted with contempt. "You protect traitors and rebels against their rightful masters. This is why your species must be eliminated. You corrupt the natural order with your weak concepts of freedom." "I see," Maria replied. "So you're planning to commit genocide against civilian populations who want to govern themselves. That makes you pirates and murderers, not soldiers." The Korthak leader's rage was visible even across species barriers. "How dare you? We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. These species exist to serve their betters." Maria activated her weapon systems. "Punishment leader Vorth, this is your final warning. Withdraw from this system immediately or face the consequences. Earth does not negotiate with slavers." Vorth's response was to order his entire fleet to attack. 12 Korthak warships opened fire simultaneously, their combined firepower sufficient to crack planets. The energy beams passed harmlessly through the U.S. Liberation, which existed in quantum superposition until the moment it chose to attack. Then Maria's ship became devastatingly real, launching weapons that rewrote the laws of physics in the space around the enemy fleet. The battle lasted 6 minutes. When it was over, 11 Korthak ships were trapped in temporal stasis fields, their crews helpless. The 12th ship, Vorth's flagship, had been caught in a space-time distortion that caused it to experience its own destruction in reverse, over and over again. "Punishment leader, Vorth," Maria's voice came through the static of the temporal loop. "You wanted to make an example of rebels. Instead, you become an example of what happens to slavers who threaten free people." The liberation of the Altair system freed over 2 million enslaved beings and dealt another devastating blow to Korthak prestige. More importantly, it provided Earth with a forward base from which to support other rebellions. Within 6 months, the human fleet had liberated 17 star systems and destroyed over 200 Korthak vessels. The rebellion that had begun with isolated uprisings had become a galaxy-wide revolution. High Commander Varex stood in his war room on Korthak Prime, staring at the strategic display that showed the collapse of his empire. Red markers indicated systems in open revolt. Yellow markers showed systems where communication had been lost. Green markers, representing secure hegemony territory, were becoming increasingly rare. "Status report," he demanded from his assembled commanders. "War Commander." Yale stepped forward, his expression grim. "High Commander, we have lost contact with 47 systems in the past month. Intelligence suggests that human forces are supporting rebellions throughout our territory. Our supply lines are being systematically destroyed. What about our reinforcement fleets? Surely 12,000 vessels can overwhelm 50 human ships?" Yale's scales dimmed. "The humans don't fight alone. Rebels, Zorath, Teller, even our own, join them. Their 50 ships move like ghosts, striking supply hubs, freeing slaves. Our fleets chase shadows." The holodisplay flickered, red markers spreading like wildfire. Varex's claws clenched, his empire crumbling. Humanity's spark had ignited a galaxy. Stars burned with freedom's light, and the Korthak hegemony fell, undone by those who listen to the oppressed. A new era dawned, forged in human heart, unyielding and bright.